Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Let Fear Bounce. This is Kim Langling, your host, and I am so glad that you are deciding to join me and my special guest today. Each week, I have new guests on, folks from all around the world, and it's such a pleasure to have them all. And this week, my special guest is Kino Isaac, and he's coming to us from South Africa, folks. So he's a bit far away. It's more than a hop, skip, and a jump. So Kino is my guest today. He is a music entrepreneur, a consultant for indie artists and labels, a radio DJ, producer, and podcaster on a mission to revolutionize the entertainment industry. And rather than chasing fame or fortune, Kino has built his career on fostering long-term relationships with independent creatives, offering invaluable support to help them thrive in a crowded market. Kino, welcome to Let Fear Bounce.
Thank you so much for having me, Kim. Much love, much respect. It's an honor to be here. It really is an honor to be here after you being on my podcast about just over a week ago. Now I'm on the opposite side of the conversation.
Right. And I was going to say, I was just a guest on your show just about a week ago. And I got to tell you, folks, Kino is a very, very welcoming and gracious host, and he puts you at ease right away. So I truly, truly was blessed by being a guest on your show. So thank you once again for that.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here. Hi to all the listeners. Thank you for having me on.
Now, this is going to be fun, folks. First off, like I said, he's more than a hop, skip, and a jump away. And you can probably tell, I don't know, he's got a little bit of an accent compared to me. So maybe you can tell he's not from Pennsylvania. But how did you, first off, I'm going to toss my first question at you. You're a music entrepreneur, consultant, and producer. How did you get into that realm of music? Because obviously it's a huge part of your life. So how did you get involved in music to begin with?
Wow. I guess we will need more than 30 minutes, to share my whole life story. But to sum it up for me, growing up, music has always played a critical role in my life. It was my escape. It was my inspiration. It was my empowerment. When you go through life and you come across many challenges, I've always seek music, to overcome, that obstacles that were in my mind on how to get through it. And at that time, we're talking about in the 2000s, it was 90s hip hop. And then Eminem played a huge role in my life as well, to motivate me to keep going on. And as I was progressing in life as a teenager, I found something odd about how the system was actually designed. It didn't make sense to me. And going to school, I was labeled as someone who wasn't intelligent, who didn't know what he was doing because I wasn't, complying to what the world wanted me to do. I knew there was a creative spark in me that wanted to be unleashed, but I just felt like I was getting held back. So you also get labeled now rebellious as well, when it comes to that, because you're supposed to go to school, you're supposed to go to college or university, get a degree, get a job. But I wanted to do something that was going to be extraordinary. I wanted to innovate. I wanted to create. So music was something I knew I was always going to do with my life. And like many people out there, you find many obstacles along the way. You find obstacles that can be within your inner circle, your friends, your family, your school teachers, people who are going to keep telling you it's a waste of time. But I decided to just, block out the noise as hard as it was. I mean, even today, I still block out a lot of noise. And I know blocking out that noise can be very hard for a lot of, independent creatives out there. So it was 2007 that I decided to launch my first record label with a friend of mine. He never do too well, to be honest. We were composing great music, we were putting great content out there, but it was a different era of the music industry. But on one end, I was also involved in the event side. So I first started off hosting house parties. I should book halls and I should host events when it should come to the end of a school term. I should host like an end of school term party. But I'm also a professional DJ as well. In 2014, a group of friends and I came together and we decided to move into now your proper nightclubs, hosting events. And that's how Posh My Gosh events actually came about. That was like our, label. That's what we called ourselves. It was keeping events posh, but also being hip at the same time. And we also didn't want to work with how the rest of the industry was working, where it was more like a lot of nepotism that was happening, where it was, event companies hiring people they knew, friends they knew. We wanted to give opportunities to DJs who weren't getting a chance to showcase their work. And that's how we went about it. So we started getting these contracts with these nightclubs, well-known nightclubs, throughout South Africa. I would look for the underground guys who needed the opportunity, and I'll bring them on to actually play their set at the event. So we started to do like really well with the events. At that time in my life, I was in my early 20s and DJing was my thing. Hosting events was my thing. But the cherry on top of the cake for me is I wanted to learn more about the business end of the entertainment side. Not just being involved as an artist in the business, but also learning the business itself. So I wanted to go down that road, and that's when I decided to relaunch my record label, which is now called Posh My Gosh Records. So I always kept the Posh My Gosh brand going, which is so important for creators to understand when it comes to building a brand.
I want to step back for a second. At the beginning, when you started talking about your journey back when you were younger, you said it was your escape and it was your way and your motivation to keep going.
Yes.
What were you trying to escape from?
I guess it was getting criticized all the time and being judged, not only by, external community, but also being judged by family and being judged by friends about how I saw the world or what I wanted to do. So music was my escape, because then I should listen to all these inspirational artists who should give me that hope deep within that, no, I am going down the right track. I can do something with this. I can be involved in music. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does perfectly. And I like how you said, that the songs, I think anybody listening, and I know myself included, music has played a big part in my life. Just a lot of it, just how certain songs hit you. And everybody can say, they hear a song and they remember exactly where they were and what they were doing when when they first heard that song, or, whatever the case may be. And I often say, there's so many songs I could put together that's my life soundtrack. And you could go decade by decade, and that would be my life soundtrack. And I think music is so powerful in I like how you use the word unity. It is unifying. You can bring complete strangers together, like you were talking about the festivals and different events like that. You've got all these people from different walks of life and different levels, and however it is that you may view things, but you've got some good music going on, and everybody's, bouncing to the same beat, and each getting it in their own way.
Like it's like what we discussed just over a week ago. A track will come on radio or on Spotify, and it will take you back to a certain event that happened in your life. And at times, we need to be taken back to that time in our life, especially if we're going through a moment of uncertainty, or we're feeling a bit down, or anxiety is involved. You need to actually take your brain back to that moment, to that track that actually made you happy and excited, and completely changes your mood in the present moment. The power of music once again.
And it is incredibly powerful. Oh my goodness. And I love I'll find myself humming things, and I'll be like, what is that song? And then the words will start coming to me. I'll be like, oh my gosh, that's something I remember from grade school. It'll be like a grade school little ditty. I'm like, where did that come from? And I always find it interesting when things just pop up in your head and give you little reminders. And I think they're reminders for a reason. Because like you just said, maybe you're having a bit of a poopy day, and you have that little reminder, and it slams you right back to a time. Maybe it was when, you were younger and you were very happy and it felt like you didn't have a care in the world.
Yeah. 100%.
Music is 100%. Awesome. So, okay. Do you play instruments? I know you're a DJ, but do you play instruments? Do you sing? Do you do both? What do you do?
So when it comes to instruments, the only instrument that I do play is a professional studio piano, not your traditional pianos.
What is something that gives you a spark of creativity? So is it, being out in nature? Is it listening to others' music? What is it that's something that just sparks Kino, not the producer, not the composer, but Kino as a person? What sparks your creativity?
What sparks my creativity? You know, if I say passion for what I do or passion for the industry itself and creating content, any form of content that actually matters, So when I look at the world, and I look at social injustice, and I look at how disastrous the world is actually becoming, and how more divided the world is becoming, that sort of sparks my creativity to keep making more music that can actually relate to people who are confused in these times that we are living in, or which direction to actually go.
Create content that matters.
Create content that matters, driven by purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see how that would be a spark.
Yeah.
I can, and that's, I think that might be the same with a lot of creatives. For me, I can only speak for myself. When I write, I want it to be able, I want the reader to be able to put the book down and be like, okay, yeah, I get it. Or, okay, I can make it through this day.
Yeah.
You know?
Like when you're creative, I'm not necessarily saying there's nothing that sparks a person or nature won't, bring out your best. For me, maybe taking a walk or taking a run or just meditating, is going to enhance my creativity. But in
Yeah.
being a creator, you need to have a passion to create whatever it
Yeah.
is you're passionate about creating. But the end product of what you're about to create, whether it be a track or whether it be a book, as you just mentioned, needs to change that person's life in some form or way.
And
That's a
hopefully for the
hope
better.
for the better,
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
better. All the material that we consume from creative, especially from mainstream in this day and age, we need to really ask ourselves, yeah, it can make us dance in a nightclub, it can make us dance at a party for sure. But when I listen to it, is it benefiting my life in any way?
Right.
And if not, then why am I consuming that material?
Right. That is the question of the ages. Why am I consuming this? You know, like you had mentioned the world. I think you even used the word disastrous. No one has to look very far to see how confusing it might be for a lot of people, how frightening. I
Yeah,
think there's a lot of fear floating around the world right now too, of the unknown or
yeah,
what's coming next. And I think folks like you and other creatives, authors, musicians, there's so many, artists, singers, what have you. There's so many creative people out there. And I think the majority, at least the ones that I've met, are trying to put out something positive out there out into the world. I call them
yeah,
nuggets,
yeah, yeah.
you know. Um, and I like how you said uh, your spark is knowing that you're creating something that matters, but it's, say if you take a walk or you're taking time to listen to other people's music, that enhances that. I love how you worded that.
When you're a creator, like deep inside already that I am a creative. This is not something that you can automatically learn. Yes, you can, craft your work, and
Right.
educating yourself on how to do better should never stop. But deep down, if a creator, just by waking up in the morning and knowing that that is your purpose, that for me should automatically already be your spark. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
if it's driven by a higher purpose, if it's driven by a higher
Yeah. And
purpose.
see, that's when I just go, mic drop.
Good.
Your passion needs to be driven by a higher purpose. I firmly believe in that. Firmly
Yeah.
believe in that. And when you know, you know.
Yeah, yeah. When it may take you
Yeah.
time, but
Right.
you will know sooner or later that, hey, you know what? There's a reason that I have some sort of liking, especially for the kids of today. There must be a reason I have some sort of liking to writing, or just listening to music, or always being involved in music. I mean,
Right.
when I was a kid, music was playing all the time. Whether it was, and those days, I mean, you had like your CD Walkmans and stuff like that,
Oh,
but if you always had something on, and music was always something that you're always listening to, or in my case, as soon as you put on the TV, it's MTV, there's something there. You may not know at the time
you're
what it
you're
is.
dating us, Kino.
Yeah.
Walkman and MTV. There are listeners right now are going, "What is that?"
Exactly.
Look it
You
up,
may not make.
kids. Yeah, look it up, kids. Google Walkman and MTV because I got to tell you, you missed out. You missed out.
Yeah.
That was before everything was streamed. Before everything, there was no cell phones, nothing. You still had the phone hanging on the wall, that a rotary dial phone. You know, MTV. I loved that. We would make sure we were on the living room floor in front of our TV at Friday night at 8 p.m. so we could hear all the top new songs of the week on
Yeah.
MTV. I mean, we had to wait a week, until
Yep.
the next episode on television. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up because see, that's another thing that just takes you back in time. This has been such an awesome conversation. I want you to please let folks know where they can find you and all your good stuff.
So people can find me at Posh Magosh Group /Kino Isaac, you know, to contact me directly, if you want to learn more, any specific part in your career that you're stuck with at the moment, or you're just getting started, which is, a lot of my clientele. I'm just getting started. I don't know what to do. I'm great at being a composer. I'm great at playing the guitar. I want to be involved in music. Please assist me with finding my path. So that's where people can find me, for consulting. The YouTube channel has recently been launched. It's Kino Isaac Consulting Agency. It's recently been launched. As a podcaster, YouTube is not my main playground. Spotify is. If people want to listen to my personal podcast, which is called the Kino Isaac Podcast, you can find that on Spotify, and that's like a diverse range of creators, from authors to musicians, to publishing houses, to music producers, singer songwriters. You can find it all there. Something that we talked about before we went live. I've just recently launched my first playbook. It's 27 pages long. Um, so the playbook is, music and business strategies. One of the topics I discuss in the playbook is artificial intelligence. And now, if you use artificial intelligence responsibly, that tools can also assist you, with your marketing as well. Oh yeah, it just came back to me now. It's called 2025 Music Industry Playbook, branding and financial, tips for independent artists and labels. So AI is already playing a critical role,
Right,
for the music industry, for the whole entertainment industry over. It's just how to use it. If you
right.
can utilize that with your marketing material in a responsible way, then you'll be able to, you know, generate your content, understand algorithms a bit more better. But moral of the story anyway is, look, find what works for you. Find
Right.
what works for you and stick with that.
And
That's how
stick
you
with it. Yes, that's the
Yes.
other thing. Stick with it because sometimes it might feel like you're spinning your wheels and going nowhere.
Yeah.
Stick with it. Because if you know
Yeah.
your passion, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Just it might be a bumpy, well, it will be a bumpy ride at times because no one ever promises you're going to have a smooth ride to success or whatever it is that you envision success to be. To me, success is, being able to positively impact someone else's life.
I mean, being a creative, no, we are always going to be our worst critics,
Right. And it can be lonely.
Yeah, it can. We're always going to criticize our work. We're always going to put a project together, put a book together, release the book, and then you go through the book and you're going to be like, I can do this better, I can do that better. Of
Right.
course, but leave it for the next book. But if you are sitting there with the first draft and you are going over and over and over it again, the brain is automatically going to pick up on stuff that you are going to feel, oh no, this is wrong, that is wrong, and then you're never going to push it out to market. So it's about, eliminating that, you know, self negative criticism and self sabotaging yourself. Don't
Right.
do that. The moment you are finished with a project, and the first time, I know we have editors, and in my case, being a producer, where the final product comes back to me, and I'm like, okay, it's good to go to market. You know, as an editor, you should know this. They'll send it back to you. Okay, maybe fix this and come back. You will have those instances, but then push it out to market. Let the audience decide. you know let the audience decide. So put that book out, put that track out, let the audience decide, and then focus on the data afterwards, which many creators don't. They don't look at the data. If you put something to market and then you don't look at the data, of course now you're going to be like, oh, I'm not successful, nobody likes my music. Yeah, but you haven't looked at the data. Where is the data? And at times we look at, you know, let's just say I'm in South Africa, for example. Okay, I am in South Africa. It's not just let's say I am in South Africa.
Yes, and you are there.
Okay, when I first released my music, surprisingly enough, my audience is not even in South Africa. My audience for my music now is in the US, it's in Europe, it's in countries I've never even known about. But that's because I've looked at the data. Now, by looking at the data, it's also going to assist me now with my marketing strategy. Why should I market my content, my work, pay, if I can afford to as an independent artist, pay for ads to market in South Africa when my audience is not here? No, I need to now, grow my audience in these countries where people are actually consuming my material. That's where I need to invest.
Very smart. And and a lot of times as a creative, you don't know any of that. That's what we were talking earlier. There's a lot that you have to teach yourself as an entrepreneur, but then you also have to know when you need to reach out to others. And you do it as you're able. Don't let everything overwhelm you, because I can't, like I just said, I can't afford to have a team right now. But someday I will. But there are certain projects that I have to reach out to others that are better at doing that than I am. Or I simply don't want to learn it because that's not my skill set. It's it's like I'll learn the basics, but I don't want to learn how to do it because this is what I'm good at and this is what I want to do. I want to stay in my lane for certain things, but
even if you don't have the finances available for you now to, get someone else who specializes in that strength that I am weak at, look in your community, because that's exactly what I did. When I needed to get the vocal recordings done and the vocal coaching done, I looked in my community. And at that time, when I was rebuilding my label, just like many independent artists out there, I did not have the finances. And I made one promise to myself, which was I'm going to do it myself because I know it'll start and end with me. No one is going to dictate how I should actually, run with my values, my principles, within the label itself. And then I came across, just by looking in the community, a label who was good at, vocal recording. And I went with them with the deal. And I said, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to bring ABC to the table. You do this for me. I can't pay you upfront, but what I am going to do is I'm going to give you a high majority percentage share in the final product. From the masters to the publishing, you're going to have a good majority share. It's not going to be a case where Kino is going to, pay you, and that's like a work for hire sort of deal. Because on a work for hire sort of deal, as a creative, also you need to also understand how entertainment law also works. So on a work for hire, I can go to producer, I can pay him $1,000 up front. He's going to compose that beat for me. The beat is going to come back to me, and then I have all ownership. But now, what if I don't have that $1,000? So let me go to producer and rather say, look, let's work on this project together, but we'll have equal ownership. Or you can even have bulk of ownership, because my mentality is I rather own 10% of something and finish a project than own 100% of a project that's never going to see the day of light.
Right.
So there's different ways to structure deals. So when artists knock on my door or they want to approach me for my services, I look at all angles, that we can actually go to make this happen for you,
right,
while still educating you on the business end of thing. One rule I also work with is the 80-20 rule, where is that I want independent creators to focus 80% of on the time on the business, 20% on the music.
You know
That's
what
how you're going to see.
Yeah, no, good. I'm glad you shared that. And I've done in the past, on occasion, not a lot, but on occasion, bartered, like exchange of services to work together, like a collaborative effort, doing it that way. So, you might meet another smaller entrepreneur, independent creative, and you're like, I'd like to do this, and I'm good at that, and I'm not. But, and I've done that with a few people where we've collaborated and I've helped them because I have the skill set they don't, and vice versa. So, yeah, there's many ways. And I like how you mentioned, looking within your community. That's very important. Someone else had mentioned to me, go to maybe your local universities or college campuses, because there's a lot of students that have to do certain projects, and they may be able to help you with certain tasks as well that you don't have to pay for, because they have to do it as part of their schooling. So there's a lot of different ways to get certain things done. You just have to be creative in looking for them.
100%.
So thank you for sharing that. Now, as we wrap up, I ask all of my guests to please toss out a nugget of hope to the listeners. So what would your nugget of hope be today?
I don't want to sound like, cliche, because there's so many people out there and so many motivational speakers, coaches, entrepreneurs who say, the same things over and over. Keep believing in yourself, keep putting in the work, and, discipline, and, build your confidence up. Nugget of hope for my end would be and I just want to say that when I mention the world is disastrous, there may be things happening, especially politically worldwide, or we may have disagreements, because that's just how divide and conquer actually works. But we do live in a beautiful world, and we live in a world full of opportunity. There's so much that you can do. And one thing you need to understand, and this is something, someone taught me once, saying that we're not humans living a spiritual experience. We're actually spiritual beings living a human experience. So my nugget of hope would be is to just realize that we are here in this dimension for a short period of time. If you are truly passionate about anything, it doesn't have to only be within the creative space. If you are passionate about anything, whatever that one thing may be, don't lose hope that you can't turn it into a full-time career. Don't give up because of all the noise that people make about it. If you truly believe in it and it makes you happy, and when you wake up in the morning and you think to yourself that, wow, being an author makes me happy, writing makes me an author, stick with it. Stick with it all the way through. Is it going to be challenging? Yes. Am I going to get roadblocks? Yes. Are people going to criticize me? Yes. Are people going to tell me that I can't do it, that I can't make it? Yes. You just need to keep going. It doesn't matter if you are going to lose friends, if you are going to lose family members. It doesn't matter who leaves. Let them leave. Just do you. Do you and focus on it. It's going to take time, especially if you're doing it yourself, and especially if you're going through a storm. It's going to take time. But you just need to be patient. You need to trust the process. You need to, discipline yourself. You need to never stop educating yourself. Keep learning, keep growing. And I know it's going to be financially frustrating for you, where you are going to reach moments where there's probably going to be zero in your bank account because you're chasing this dream of yours. Don't give up. Don't give in. Keep going. Work through those dark moments. And when Isaac Newton once said, that every action has an opposite and equal reaction. You have to go through that dark period in order to see the light. It's not going to happen in 24 hours. So if you truly believe in something, like how I believed in music, and what music can do for the world and how it can bring people together, if I gave up on the first person that said, oh no, it's a waste of time and you need to get what the world says, oh, a proper job. If I have given up on myself and believing in what I can do, my contribution towards humanity, I wouldn't be on this conversation with Kim today. You
Right.
know, I wouldn't have built a brand today. I wouldn't have my own podcast today. I wouldn't have my own label today. I wouldn't be making an impact in the independent creator space today. I don't know if that is a nugget of hope, or
It
one
is.
word.
There were several nuggets within that. I think the main part of it is just don't give up. You've got that feeling in your heart for a reason. And like you
Exactly.
said, we're, really technically, we're just here for a short time. And
Yeah.
why not, when it is your time to leave, know that you left at least your part of the world a better place because you were in it.
But you have to believe in yourself enough. You have to be truly passionate about it. If you are doing whatever you are doing for the wrong reasons, then there's a guarantee that it's not going to work out long term. Your
You
heart needs to be in the
That
right
is
place.
right. That is right. You had said at the beginning of your nugget of hope, you had said something about find the beauty in the world. I immediately thought, and this is again how music works, I thought of Louis Armstrong. What a wonderful world it would be. That
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
See how music
100%.
works. See it all.
Yeah.
See, we just brought that all full circle, Kino. See, what a way to round out the show.
We should not allow the powers of the world, and we should not allow mainstream media to dictate how we can actually interact with each other.
Right.
We can be unified, we can work together, the world can be beautiful. No, the
It
world is beautiful,
It
but
is
we
yes, it is
have to be in
beautiful.
conflict.
And
Yeah,
don't let outside forces, whatever they may be, suck out your own humanity.
100%.
You know,
100%.
I
Keep
mean,
going.
that's right. Keep going, darn it.
Yeah, never give up and keep
You're on
going.
the other side of the world and I'm in the United States. So right now we've got the world covered. We just solved a lot of the world's problems, Kino.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Why don't more people
Wonderful.
listen to us? We just solved it.
Exactly. And
With
be
music
kind.
and books. With music and books, we just solved it.
But what I've always mentioned to creators is that you were born a creative. It's ancestral. Okay. You were born a creative. And as a creative, you have a responsibility with your work to make humanity better. You know, that's where humanity looks for guidance. Music, books,
Yeah,
poems,
you're right.
you know, that's where. So that's your responsibility as a creative.
I like that, how you just worded that. That's where humanity looks for guidance within the books and the music that you create.
Yeah.
Remember that, folks. You've got that. And whether it's art, maybe you are a glass blower, maybe you are a potter, you make beautiful pottery, whatever the case may be. If you're putting joy and beauty into the world, that is so, so important. So
100%.
important. So keep doing it. Keep doing it. Don't give
Keep
up on
smiling.
yourself.
Yeah. And keep smiling. Whether it's good or bad, keep smiling. And be kind. Be kind to people.
Yes.
Be kind to each other. You know, that's what brings more beauty to the world.
That's what I'm always saying. Be kind to each other, darn it.
That's it. That's it.
Well, thank
Kim,
you
thank
so
you so
much.
much. I
Thank you.
hope this was, insightful,
Oh,
complex, but
and it was fun. There's a lot of stuff I learned in today's conversation, just about in what you do and how it
yeah,
actually all
yeah,
comes together as different creatives. There's so many similarities to what you have to do, especially when you're an entrepreneur and you're doing that solopreneur type thing. So yeah, it makes your world not seem so isolated, knowing that there's others out there doing just what you're doing. You're slogging away each day, you're pushing forward, and you're not giving up. And I think that summarizes the whole thing, really. Keep pushing forward and don't give up. It's just awesome. Golly,
yeah.
awesome. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
No, no, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I hope the listeners out there listening will, go out there, find their purpose, and keep building a career around that purpose. Anything else that we do is just components. The music I make is just a component of It's what I would call an MTP, a massive transformational purpose. It's a component of that purpose. My podcast is a component of that
Right.
purpose. If I am revolutionizing the music industry and offering the same opportunities, for independent creators that, opportunities that the mainstream have gotten for so many years, that day is my purpose. And all of this is just components,
Yeah.
Yeah. Of it. So find that purpose.
That's
the rest
right.
falls into place.
It will. Yeah, it will. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff.
Thank you so much, Kim.
Once again, thank you for
having me.
spending part of your day with me, and everybody out there. I hope that you all enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and having Kino as my special guest this week. Be sure you tune in each Wednesday for new episodes on Spotify, your favorite listening platforms, wherever they may be, as well as on my YouTube channel, Let Fear Bounce. I am Kim Langling, your host of Let Fear Bounce. Everybody be well, stay well, and above all, be blessed.
Kindness. It's simple, powerful, and free. Yet, it holds the extraordinary ability to change someone's day or even their life. In the book, Nuggets of Hope, Cultivate Kindness, available on Amazon, you'll find stories of spreading kindness through simple acts. Grab your copy of Nuggets of Hope today.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let Fear Bounce. New episodes drop each week, folks, on YouTube and Spotify and most listening platforms. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and do all the things. So until next time, folks, take a deep breath, be kind to yourself, and as always, let fear bounce.